It's two things. The only way you're going to be financially free is if A, you make more money so that you have extra money to invest, or B, you stop spending as much money as you're currently spending. You reduce your expenses. So then that money that's left, the gap from the reduction expenses, you then invest. Either make more money or you spend less money. And the really wise thing would be both. That's why I love what we do here from building businesses at home. You can take that extra income that you didn't have last year or before you started this business and invest that. So make more money and spend less money and get to your financial goals faster. But there is zero excuse for not putting the 10% aside. Zero excuses. Because most people are not able to do it simply because they've got comforts that they just don't want to give up or change. Hey, what's up, everybody? Welcome to episode number 20, guys. Thank you for being a part of this run that we have made with this podcast. The Freedom Factory is something that I really enjoy doing with you, for you, because at my core, this is what excites me about what I do from a business perspective, and that is giving other people like yourself the same outcome in life that I've been able to achieve through the steps that I teach here in this podcast. So I'm glad you guys are here. And today we're going to be talking about starting today, what that really means. So let me set this up. And I'm sure she won't mind me sharing what I'm about to share because I won't share names. But anyway, I was out for a walk this morning. I was out of the gym and I've got a little elbow issue that's keeping me off the weights. So I'm walking and stretching, just staying active. Anyway, so I usually try to multitask when I'm walking for exercise. That's hard for me to say. Like I used to think when I was younger, like, why would someone walk for exercise? Now I get it. So anyway, I was out for walking for exercise. And I'm having a phone call with a leader. And I told her this: when someone joins my organization, when they join me in the business, I know for a fact if they do the things that I encourage them or outline for them to do, that I am going to move their family forward. They will be in a better place a year from now because they joined me than where they currently are. I will move their family forward without a doubt. It will happen. They have to they got to do the things that I say to do. And she was kind of like, well, what do you mean? And I'm like, well, one of the simple things is, and I said, I do this. I tell this because I told you. One of the basic financial principles, if you are going to get financial independence, is that you have to be able to take and invest your money first and you spend what's left. You invest first and you spend what's left. And I said, the number, right? She's like, yeah, like 10%. At a minimum, every one of you should be putting 10% of your earnings aside and investing that for the future. And she says, yep. I need to get better at that. And I stopped the conversation. I mean, that's not what we were talking about. The conversation we were having was not about putting 10% in finances. It was completely different. And I stopped the conversation and I'm like, you're not putting 10% down or away? And so the conversation didn't get too deep there, but it made me start thinking. Here's a incredibly talented, smart person that I totally enjoy working with on a regular basis that is not applying something that I teach. And then I started thinking, why is that? Because They're smart, they're go-getters, just an amazing. Like if you wanted to have somebody to work with, this is about as good as it gets. So I started thinking, why aren't they doing this? And in my mind, comes down to self-discipline, because most people are waiting for something to change. They know they need to do it. Like I know I need to put the 10% down. I know I got to put that aside. I know I need to start investing first and paying my bills later. I know. That's what I'm supposed to do. But I'm going to do that when this happens or that happens. That's the mistake. And it's not the mistake just for your finances. It's the mistake for your health. It's the mistake for your relationships. It's the mistake for your business. And it's the mistake for your money. Because if you are always waiting for things to improve before you take the necessary steps, they're never going to improve. It's not going to happen. So the only way to control the future outcome is to take control today. Because if you're waiting for something to improve, if you're waiting for something to change before you start, you're going to be unhappy with those results. That's why, most people wait till January 1st to make some changes in their life, or they're going to start their diet on Monday. They're kicking the can down the road. Like, I'm going to start next couple days. I'm going to start in a couple weeks. I'm going to start in January. No, you need to make a decision, and it starts today. Today. Because most people feel like, well, it's going to be easier for me down the road. I'm going to make these adjustments in my life, and then it's going to be easier to do what I need to do. No, that's not the way it happens at all. And especially when it comes to money. Especially when it comes to money. Most people are thinking, well, I'm already strapped for cash and I can't put 10% aside. And that is the most ridiculous thing I've ever heard, because most of you that are listening to this podcast right now live in a country where you are earning just a tremendous amount of income compared to the rest of the world. So all you simply have to do is adjust some of your comforts in life. You may not be able to go get the coffee you want every day. You may have to get rid of cable. You may have to cut back in on your cell phone bills. You may have to really cut back on the apps that you use on your phone. You guys, right now, I bet some of you guys are paying for apps on your phone that you haven't used in 6 months or a year, but you're paying every month on it. Why aren't you using that money? Why isn't that going towards your 10%? Well, it's because you don't even see it, because it's kind of out of sight, out of mind. The point is, guys, there are no excuses. Not one person hearing my voice right now can give me a legitimate reason why they cannot put aside 10% of their earnings before they spend that money. Because if you found yourself in a financial position where things are that tight, I am telling you, you're never going to be financially free. If you're living that tight, you are never going to be financially free. You're going to have to make adjustments in your life. It's two things. You guys have heard this on the other podcast. It's two things. The only way you're going to be financially free is if A, you make more money so that you have extra money to invest, or B, you stop spending as much money as you're currently spending. You reduce your expenses. So then that money that's left, the gap from the reduction expenses, you then invest. Either make more money or you spend less money. And the really wise thing would be both. That's why I love what we do here from Building Businesses at Home. You can take that extra income that you didn't have last year or before you started this business and invest that. So make more money and spend less money and get to your financial goals faster. But there is zero excuse for not putting the 10% aside. Zero excuses. Because most people are not able to do it simply because they've got comforts that they just don't want to give up or change. And so, like you guys, I've told the story before. when the economy crashed in 2008, I had a pickup truck that I loved. I wanted this truck. It was a Ford 4x4 crew cab, white, beautiful truck, or quad cab. I crew cab, quad, four doors, a four-door truck, and I loved it. 4x4, beautiful truck, and I had to sell that truck because gasoline went to $4 a gallon. And I was driving so much for work because of what happened that literally every other day I was putting $100 in the fuel tank every other day. The truck was literally eating me alive financially. And I had to make a tough decision. I had to sell the truck. And I bought, this is no, please, like if you drive a Honda CRV, don't take this the wrong way, but I had to buy a Honda CRV. Okay. That's not the vehicle I wanted. They're great vehicles. Nothing against a Honda CRV, especially if you drive one. Great. In fact, I drove that Honda CRV until my wife and I were making about 50 grand a month. So I could have bought something else way before I got rid of that Honda CRV. But I set myself up to put myself in a position where I was investing money instead of spending money. I could have gone back and got the truck way earlier than I did. I didn't. I chose to invest that money. So for those of you that are saying you don't have 10%, I can tell you this because I have lived it. Go sell something you don't want to sell. Go downgrade the car, downgrade the cell phone plan, downgrade where you're living. You guys, I don't care if you're living in a really nice house. If you can't put 10% aside, the house is killing you. The house, you should not be in that house. Why are you hanging on to the house? If you're paying rent, you guys, you may have to go into a smaller place. You may have to move into another town. You are not forced at gunpoint to have the expenses you currently have. Okay. There is no excuse for not putting 10% aside. And if my listeners, if you guys don't get this, you're never going to be financially free. Because if you can't do it now, when you are making more money, you won't have the discipline. If you can't get the muscle, the discipline muscle now, you're certainly not going to have it when you have more money. You're just going to spend it. You're going to ratchet up your lifestyle. And if you're making $500,000 a year and you're now got $500,000 expenses and you still can't do 10%, you are still broke. In fact, you're in worse shape than you were before you were making $500,000 a year. Okay. You guys, you start today. Start today. I don't want to talk to any of you ever and you tell me you're not putting 10% aside. Because if that's the case, then you're just not going to get where you want to be. And that's hard for me to even fathom because you should be able to, in a pretty quick period of time, especially with all the opportunities we have around us. Just yesterday, I watched many of the stocks I'm invested in go up by 15 and 20% in a day. 15 and 20% in one day gain. One day. Think about that, guys. In one day, that kind of gain, because I had the discipline to put money in the market instead of spending that money on dinners and drinks and cars and all the other things. I invested before I spent. And because of that, I reaped the rewards in a massive way yesterday in the markets. I had one that went up over 27% yesterday. So make sure that you are putting that 10% away. Now, why again is this super, super important? This discipline. And it's not just around the money side of things. I want to talk about the discipline of now, the importance of now. There's this thought process that is so true. We're always looking for control, but we're allowing things in the past to control our decisions and our hopes for the future to control our decisions. And we're forgetting about now and what decision we're making now. And the reality is this: None of us can change the past. Whatever's happened in the past has happened in the past. We can learn from the past, but you can't change it. So some people are so worried about what's happened before, it's determining the decisions that they make now. And you can't change anything in the past. Nothing can be changed about the past. And the future is not promised. There's not one person listening to this podcast that knows for sure they're going to be on this earth tomorrow. The future is not promised. So if you're waiting for things to change before you start taking some action, if you're waiting for things to change before you start putting the 10% aside, if you're waiting for things to change before you change the way you talk to your loved ones, or you change your diet, if you're waiting for Monday to change your diet, if you're waiting for January 1st to get in shape, that may never come. You can't control the future and you can't change the past. The only thing you have control over is today. And so put that into motion in every facet of your life. Worry about today. Don't worry about tomorrow. Put 10% aside today. Do the work today that you were planning to do next week. You guys know that you're supposed to be reaching out to new contacts every day, but maybe you had a really busy today, so you're going to make up for it tomorrow. No, that's not the way it works. That's not the way it works. You can't do that with your muscles. You can't work out, not work out for a month and then work out really hard for 3 straight days and expect to have the results you want. In fact, you're probably going to get injured doing that. It's not the way the body works. And it's also not the way the financial worlds work. You cannot not invest or be in and out of the market. Like, that's a better example. You can't buy and then get out, get in, get out, get in, get out, trying to time the market. That's a fool's game to try and time the market. The saying is you should never time the market. It's more about how much time you're in the market, meaning you don't ever come out. Your money should be in there for days like yesterday, because there are a lot of people who were not in yesterday. They were worried about what was going to happen with all the elections going on, and they massively missed because maybe they pulled their money out. So the point is, guys, you can't control the future. You can't control the past. All you can control is today. And so no more excuses. You guys have heard me say this over and over and over again when it comes to your money. The first step into financial freedom is putting a minimum of 10% down. And for all of you that are in network marketing, it's more like 20%. 10% needs to put a minimum of 10% needs to be put aside for your taxes, because you're independent contractors. So at the end of the year, you're going to need money, not the end of the year, but in April, whenever your taxes come due, whatever country you're in, you're going to need money to pay for your taxes. The last thing you need to be worried about is where you're going to find that money. That money should be put aside in an account. And I would tell you that you should put that into an account, maybe even with the same funds where you're saving money, where it's a high interest yield account. And in the perfect world, depending on if you are if you're pretty good at money and money management, you can put that in one account. You can put your investment money and you can put your future tax money in one account, a high interest yielding account. You guys should, no one listening to my voice should be earning less than 4%. No one should be earning less than 4% right now at this day. We're in November of 2024. Plenty of banks that will pay you 4% on your money and earn that interest until it's time to pay your taxes. Okay. Now, if you're kind of bad with your money, and only you will know, you may want to have 2 separate accounts. One just for investments, just for that 10% investment, and one just for your taxes. Because if you're bad with your money, when you're going to go for that tax money, it's not going to be there because you spent it doing something else. Okay. So I say it's a minimum of 20% that you're putting aside of every check, not just your big checks. In fact, we had Bob Wagner on this podcast, and he said something really incredible. You can go back and listen to Bob Wagner's podcast with me. But he said you should never make a financial decision based on your big check. And I thought that was so good because there will be checks throughout the year that are bigger than your other checks. And sometimes when people get those big checks, maybe one or two, they think, okay, here it is. This is the new standard. And they go out and they buy the car, they buy the house, they buy some whatever, toys, jewelry, whatever. And then the check drops. And then, uh-oh. Okay. That don't do that, guys. Don't make that mistake. Okay. So make sure that you're making a decision based on consistent efforts every month. Every month, you are pulling that 10% off the top. I can't repeat this enough. Pull 10% off the top. It's the first thing you do. Treat it as a bill. If you like paying your bills first, perfect. Number one on the list of your bills should be your investment account. That comes before the mortgage. It comes before the rent. It comes before the cell phone. It comes before cable. It comes before groceries. It comes before everything. Everything. The first thing you pay is your personal investment bill. 10% of your earnings goes into an account that you then invest. And it's up to you to decide what level of risk you want to take investing, whether it's low risk, medium risk, or high risk. So, the discipline, guys, the discipline is what's going to be required in order for you guys to be financially free. And it's the same discipline that's going to be necessary in order for you to build a network marketing business. You can't go days without recruiting people or trying to recruit people and then thinking you're going to do it all at one time. You can't go days or weeks without following up. You can't go days or weeks without doing personal development. Some of you listening to my voice right now, and I'm glad you are listening to this podcast. I think this falls under the personal development category. But some of you are not doing daily or even weekly personal development. And I don't even know how you could possibly think you would grow as a human in business or finances if you're only doing that once in a blue moon or once a week. That cannot be. You don't eat once a week. You don't sleep once a week. You guys, here's a good rule of thumb. You should do personal development as much as you charge your cell phone. So every time you plug your cell phone in, it should be a reminder to you if you've done your personal development for the day. Did you listen to your podcast for the day? Did you do any reading for the day? Did you watch any YouTube videos? And I'm talking about not YouTube as in entertainment. I'm talking about business related, finances related, learning new skills, learning new things, maybe learning a new language, learning a new way to trade. You guys, right now, I'm currently spending probably in the neighborhood of 4 hours, maybe 6 hours a week learning option training. And I've done some options, but I'm still putting more and more time in so that I can learn the options game a little better. And I'm making those investments, but I've got to put the time in. I've got to learn. I got to have the discipline to take the 4 hours a week away from something else and give it to this education piece so that I can accomplish the financial goals that I want to accomplish. You guys, if you're not doing personal development as much as you are charging your cell phone, you're messing up. If you're giving your cell phone more love than you're giving your own brain, I think you know where that might lead. You guys, you can't go through life without a cell phone these days, and you can't go through life without personal development. Not with the results that you're wanting to get. The batteries are going to be drained. You're not going to be where you need to be, and it's the discipline. It's today, and I'm not talking about tomorrow, guys. Today, that when you hear this podcast, I don't care what day you hear this podcast or when you hear it. Take action today to do the things that you need to do to get where you want to be. Do the invites. Do the follow up. If you haven't put 10% aside this month, do it now. Do it now. And if the money's gone, like there's no more money and you're waiting for the next check to come in, when that check comes in, it's the first bill you pay. It's 10%. If you do that, guys, if you do that in 12 months from now, you will be in a better financial position you are now. Because if you're not saving 10% now, I bet you also don't have an emergency fund. And I bet you're also not investing in securities or things that you can use to multiply your income. You're living paycheck to paycheck. And if we can get you saving 10% now in 12 months, we're going to have that emergency fund built, or we're going to be a lot closer. And that means we have moved your family forward. And that's what I'm after. I'm after moving families forward. But you got to do your part. I can't do it for you. And your part is the discipline, the daily discipline, and no more excuses. Excuses, there's, you guys, excuses are is what makes people unhappy and poor. Okay. Don't do that. Don't do that. None of us have problems. We just have a decision to make. Everybody's like, oh, I got this problem. Like, no, you don't have, nobody has no problems. We just, all of us have decisions to make. And the decisions you make will determine your future. So you guys start today. That was the theme of this podcast. Start today. That's my hope. You start today. And it's also my hope that you share this podcast, share it out on social media, take a screenshot of the podcast, share it in your stories. I love that. I will grab them. I will tag you. And that will be a great way for you to show your appreciation for what I'm doing here. Hopefully I'm making an impact in your life with this podcast. And hopefully by you doing that, we can multiply the results. So you guys have a great week. We'll see you guys here next week for episode 21. All right. Take care.